Some memories refuse to fade, no matter how much time passes or how desperately we try to rationalize them away. They linger in the corners of our minds like uninvited guests, waiting for quiet moments to resurface with unsettling clarity. The events I'm about to describe happened 3 years ago, yet they feel as vivid and inexplicable today as they did that peculiar autumn night when everything changed on Maple Street. I had lived in my modest 2-story house for nearly 5 years before the Hendersons moved in next door. They seemed unremarkable at first, a middle-aged couple with polite smiles and a penchant for keeping their lawn immaculately maintained. Richard Henderson worked in finance, or so he claimed during our brief encounters at the mailbox. His wife, Margaret, was a homemaker who spent her afternoons tending to a garden that somehow flourished even as summer turned to fall. They were the kind of neighbors everyone hopes for, quiet, courteous, and respectfully distant. The first indication that something was different about them came in early October. I noticed an unusual number of deliveries to their house, large wooden crates, boxes wrapped in brown paper, and strange metallic equipment that workers unload. My bedroom window overlooked their backyard, and I found myself watching with growing curiosity as they constructed what appeared to be an elaborate pavilion. The structure was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with flowing white curtains and strings of lights that seemed to pulse rather than glow steadily. When I asked Margaret about it one morning, her response was disarming in its simplicity. "We're hosting a small gathering," she said, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "Just some old friends we haven't seen in years. It's been so long since we've all been together." There was something in her tone, a wistfulness mixed with anticipation, that made me uneasy, though I couldn't articulate why. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under my door while I was at work. It was printed on heavy cardstock with elegant calligraphy that seemed to shimmer in the light. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the convergence," it read. No date, no time, just those 6 words and an instruction at the bottom. "You'll know when." I showed it to my girlfriend Sarah, who laughed it off as eccentric neighbor behavior. "Maybe they're just quirky," she suggested. "Rich people throw weird parties all the time." But this wasn't just eccentric. Over the following days, I noticed that every house on our street had received similar invitations. Mrs. Chen, the elderly widow 3 doors down, mentioned it during our neighborhood watch meeting. "Very strange," she muttered, adjusting her glasses. "In all my 40 years here, I've never seen anything like it." The Johnsons, a young family with 2 children, seemed equally perplexed. Even Tom Bradley, our street's resident skeptic and retired police officer, admitted he found the whole thing off. The night of the party announced itself without warning. I woke at exactly 3:33 a.m. to the sound of music, not loud but pervasive, as if it were coming from inside my own head. Looking out my window, I saw the Hendersons' backyard transformed into something that defied easy description. The pavilion glowed with an amber light that seemed to breathe, and figures moved within it with fluid, almost choreographed precision. Every neighbor on Maple Street was there, I later learned, drawn by the same inexplicable compulsion that pulled me from my bed. What happened that night challenges everything I thought I understood about reality, community, and the thin veil between the ordinary and the impossible. We've all returned to our normal lives, exchanging pleasantries at the mailbox and waving as we drive past each other. But there's an unspoken agreement among us now, a collective silence about that October night. When new residents move onto our street, they sometimes ask about the Hendersons' beautiful backyard setup. We smile politely and change the subject, because some experiences exist beyond the realm of comfortable conversation. This is my attempt to break that silence, to document what happened before the details blur into the comfortable fog of rationalization. Whether you believe me or not is irrelevant. The transformation back happened gradually as dawn broke over Maple Street. The otherworldly beings faded first, not disappearing but rather becoming invisible again, returning to the dimensions we couldn't normally perceive. The backyard slowly contracted to its actual size, though for those of us who had chosen to remember, we could still see traces of its true nature if we looked carefully. The pavilion remained physically present, but lost its impossible qualities, becoming merely an elegant but ordinary structure. The Hendersons themselves were the last to change, and watching it was like seeing a door slowly close on another world. Their luminescence faded, their features became average again, their movements lost that unearthly grace. Within minutes they were once again Richard and Margaret Henderson, middle-aged suburban couple, remarkable only in their remarkable ordinariness. Yet those of us who remembered could still see the truth beneath the mask, could still perceive the ancient consciousness looking out through those deceptively normal eyes. We gathered ourselves to leave, those who had chosen to forget already looking confused and dreamy, starting to doubt the reality of what they'd experienced. The Johnson children were being carried by their father, both kids deeply asleep and likely to remember the night as nothing more than a vivid shared dream. Tom Bradley caught my eye and gave a small, sad smile. He would forget, but in that moment before the memories fully faded, he understood what he was losing and accepted it. Mrs. Chen walked beside me as we headed back to our houses, the sun now fully risen on what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary Saturday morning. "It will be lonely sometimes," she said quietly, knowing I had also chosen to remember, knowing what we know, seeing what we see, while the world goes on oblivious. But it's also a gift. We'll be able to find wonder in the mundane, see the eternal in the temporary, recognize the sacred in the ordinary. That's worth the loneliness. As I reached my front door, I turned back to look at the Hendersons' house. Margaret stood in her doorway, watching us all return to our homes. Our eyes met, and she nodded once, a gesture of respect, recognition, and promise. The convergence was over, but the connection remained for those willing to see it. I went inside to find Sarah still sleeping peacefully, unaware that the world was so much stranger and more beautiful than she knew. I lay down beside her, knowing that from this moment forward, I would live between two worlds, my body in one, and my consciousness expanded across many. It would indeed be lonely sometimes, but as I drifted off to sleep, the last traces of the Hendersons' otherworldly music still echoing in my mind, I knew that Mrs. Chen was right. It was absolutely worth it. 3 years have passed since that October night, and life on Maple Street has returned to its surface normalcy. The Hendersons remain our neighbors, friendly but private. Their backyard once again just a backyard with an elegant pavilion they claim to use for summer parties. To most of the neighbors, the strange party is at most a vague memory, a peculiar dream they sometimes reference with uncertain laughter. The unspoken agreement of silence isn't conspiratorial. It's simply that those who forgot have nothing concrete to discuss, and those of us who remember understand that some truths cannot be shared through ordinary conversation. Mrs. Chen and I have coffee together once a week, sitting on her porch and discussing our lives in a code that would seem perfectly mundane to anyone listening. But in every observation about the weather, every comment about the neighborhood, we're really talking about what we see beneath the surface, the energy flows, the parallel possibilities, the eternal connections that bind all things. She was right about the loneliness, but also about the gift. I see miracles in every moment now, the extraordinary hiding in plain sight within the ordinary. The Johnson children have grown in unexpected ways. Though they don't consciously remember the convergence, something changed in them that night. Emma has become fascinated with quantum physics, drawing diagrams of parallel universes that her teachers find remarkably sophisticated for a 10-year-old. Marcus writes stories about worlds where the rules of reality work differently, channeling memories his conscious mind has forgotten, but his deeper self retained. Their parents don't understand where these interests came from, but they nurture them, sensing that their children are somehow special. Tom Bradley died last year, peacefully in his sleep. At his funeral, I stood beside his casket and saw what the other mourners couldn't, the energy that had animated his body separating, transforming, continuing on into dimensions I can perceive, but not yet visit. He had chosen to forget, had spent his final years in peace rather than cosmic awareness, and I understood that his choice had been equally valid as mine. We each walk the path that serves our evolution and the greater pattern we're part of. Sarah and I are still together, and sometimes I ache with the knowledge I cannot fully share with her. But I've learned that love doesn't require complete understanding or shared experience. I love her in her beautiful, ordinary human awareness, and she loves who I am, even if she cannot know all of what I've become. Perhaps that's its own kind of miracle, connection across dimensions of understanding, bridges built from intention and affection rather than shared knowledge. New neighbors have moved into old Mrs. Chen's house after she passed away last month. They're a young couple, eager and curious about the neighborhood's history. Last week, the man asked me if anything interesting ever happened on Maple Street. I smiled and told him it was a quiet street. Peaceful, ordinary. He seemed satisfied with that answer. After all, the deepest truths often wear the most mundane disguises, and the greatest mysteries hide in plain sight, waiting for the convergence when boundaries thin and the veil lifts, if only for a night. The Hendersons still maintain their beautiful garden, and if you look carefully on certain nights when the moon is full, you might see a shimmer in their backyard, a suggestion of something more than what appears. But perhaps it's just a trick of the light, the way shadows play when we're tired and imagination fills in gaps. That's what I would say if asked, because some experiences exist beyond the realm of comfortable conversation. Some knowledge is meant to be carried quietly, and some parties are so strange that the only appropriate response is a silence that speaks volumes to those who know how to listen. Every 33 years, the convergence comes again. I'll be much older at the next one, but I'll be there, along with whoever else is drawn to attend. And perhaps new neighbors will receive invitations printed on elegant cardstock, will wake at 3:33 a.m. to music that seems to come from inside their own heads, will discover that reality is far stranger and more beautiful than they ever imagined. Until then, I carry my knowledge like a secret flame, warming myself with the truth that the ordinary world is anything but, and that wonder waits in every moment for those with eyes to see it. This is the story of the strange party my neighbors threw, the party we never speak of, the night that changed everything while changing nothing at all. Believe it or not, as you choose. I know what I experienced, what I still experience every day as I move through a world that most people see as solid and simple. And knowing what I know, seeing what I see, I wouldn't trade this burden and gift for anything. The convergence will come again, and when it does, perhaps you'll receive an invitation of your own.